born in the UK, moved to Dubai 30 years ago, participated and opened a massive amount of TV shows, been a DJ, learned how to be unstoppable, and now coaches, executives, and business founders how to be ones globally and here in Dubai. Meet Dave Crane, a coach, a great marketer of his own personal brand, and just a remarkable person who's the author of the book as well. Dave Crane, who I introduced at the beginning, and thank you very much for finding like a huge amount of your day to come over in person. So
Wow.
I feel really honored. Thank
Thank you
so
so
much.
much. It's an honor to be here, Larisa. I love what you do. I think you're fantastic at it. Your podcasts, your interviews are amazing. And I just wanted to be part of that. So for me, leaving the home and coming all the way to here and finding parking is worth it.
Very good. All right. So I'm absolutely sure we're going to have a very interesting conversation today. I've got a structure in mind, but feel free to sort of, feel absolutely flexible, give your personal examples, etc. So I just wanted us to start with something I was thinking about. So your core domain is actually to help people become unstoppable. How did you come to that?
Well, my real business is helping people to become industry icons, which is when we've got a world full of influencers and we've got politicians who are effectively influencers in the politics space, you realize that people aren't so old school about the establishment. They're more like what's got my attention. It's almost like social media, which is now taken over from email as the main reason for doing business, drives the way that people think about things. And so I think that the days of being a good-looking, look at my dinner, this is how I do my hair influencer have changed dramatically from before. The biggest numbers got everybody. I think that the real area for the sweet spot for people, and that's anybody, is to be an expert at what you do. You don't have to be super good looking or even good looking at all, but you have to be able to give value in what you do. And so I work with people, because my background is spending many, many years in media, working for the BBC and running radio stations and all sorts. And so I help them with my savvy of having been in the industry to fast track their image, their brand, their positioning, create the media that they need. So even if they're not the best at what they do, but they're very good at it, I mean, supposing they're 70% as good as anybody else, that 70% plus amplification and plus saying it's me will make people turn around and say, oh yeah, I know that person. Because most people who are really at the top of their game spend their time at the top of the game. That's what they do for a living. But if you're very good at what you do and you amplify it and you use social media and you create a following and you do all the stuff that you should do towards being an influencer, but you don't rely on just the fact that, I'm good looking and look at the people I know and the clothes I wear and all this stuff, then you can have a really good position that when people ask you about what you do, because you do it for a living, but also you can't be knocked off a top slot very easily because you're not asking for a top slot. You're just amplifying your ability to be really good at what you do. So when people are looking for something and your name comes up, why not just go with you?
You're basically talking about finding your niche, find your authenticity, find your superpower, use it to help people make business out of it. So that's basically how to be unstoppable works. Or am I right to think like that?
Well, Unstoppable, which is my latest book, is my latest keynote, is about the ability to get the mindset right for this to happen. So the people that I predominantly work with are already successful business people. Doesn't mean that's the only people I work with, but they're the ones that are ready to be able to elevate themselves and say, here I am, this is what I do, and monetize it very well because they've run good businesses and they can pay for my services. But also, unstoppable mindset is something that most people don't know. Most people have a job, even Dubai. Dubai is a place for the employees. You come to Dubai because you got a job lined up. Yeah. Now more people are starting up their own business, and the Dubai government realizes that, and they make it a lot easier for you to start your own business, which is fantastic as well. And that's happening across the globe. Fewer and fewer people are buying into the idea that you go to school, you get your qualifications, you go for your job, you get your job interview, you then have a family, 2.3 kids, car, holidays, and retire happily. That was a dream that was sold to us a long time ago. And I never got that dream, to be honest with you. When I was at school, I did okay at school. But when it went to getting job interviews, I was bouncing off the doors. And I'm sure that I'm not the only person. I just got so many times that didn't get the job that I wanted. Yeah. I went away, studied, worked for the BBC, got a freelance job for the BBC. Freelance as in we'll keep telling you when you can keep coming in. Worked for them for about 3 years. Now that in any job should turn into, okay, let's give you a crack at working full-time. No, it was constantly, we'll let you know. But what I watched was people who were coming in and bouncing over me to full-time jobs, who were less than me at what they did. I don't mean that to say, well, I know what, it's just you can tell.
I know what you
when
mean.
Somebody's face fits.
Yeah.
You know? And my face just never fitted for obvious reasons, which we don't need to go into in this part of today's conversation, but we probably will. And so I never bought into the British dream, the American dream, any of that dreams, but I did buy into the fact that if you play your game really well and you understand how good you are and you find what you do really well and focus on it and work really hard, you can make a living out of it. And I think that that's what most people are starting to realize now. And even the ones that are employed are turning around and saying, right, I want to have a life as well as this job. And if this isn't right for you, I'll just make a job doing what I do for you as a freelance, and I work for all these other people as well. It'll come in from bits and bobs. It'll make the same kind of wage up or down as you give me, but I'll be with my kids, I'll be in my house, and I can choose to do what I want to do for the rest of my life. And so my philosophy is really about designing your perfect life and creating the life that you really want to have. Whatever it is, there's enough for everybody, and there really is enough for everybody. There's enough money for everybody, there's enough jobs for everybody, there's enough love for everybody. The systems we have right now have been set up to make sure that there's scarcity, which makes you, take out credit cards and all the rest of it, because you're thinking, oh my goodness, I've got to have the same as them. What we've done with the pandemic is people are working from home in their jogging shorts. So why would you need to buy the latest Armani suit if you just never go out? Yeah. Maybe the top half, maybe, but the rest of it. So it's been like a real change for, no disrespect to the fashion industry, but so much of that is like, we've got to churn out the latest. Yeah. People going, you know what I have is okay. I want something else. I'd like to find happy, if that's okay. And so the book's really about finding your happy, but also imagine the School of Hard Knocks had a training manual. Yeah. That's unstoppable.
All right. Okay. No, I'm looking forward to the book to be published, because I think, we had a discovery call with you, and I know you've got a special background behind the book that made it very, very personal, at the same time very, very valuable. Maybe my question to you would be, you partially answered it already, but I like the conversation. So maybe, what is behind the story? What is the story behind, writing a book about unstoppable mindset? What pushed you to write this book? Okay. Was it a journey that you went through yourself, and you realized, for example, that this journey can help other people too?
Great question. Can I answer it in two ways?
Absolutely,
Let me refer back to the original question in a moment, but let me just talk about the book business model. The book business model is about creating a template that you have so people can see what it is that you're doing, who you are, and they can see you in their own time, rather than you having to be there all the time for them. They get the book, they like it. After that, they end up wanting to have you to speak at their events, and also they're interested in your podcast, your TV shows, and it's basically a great way to start your empire going. That's why the book is so central to that. That's really important for right now, because right now there's podcasts and there's TV shows and stuff flying about. It's easy to get access to information, but if you've made it so it's a specific type of brand that really is built on what's in it for them, then you've got something that's very special and very different. So that's why the book came about. For the actual knowledge that goes into the book, it's basically about how to go from imposter syndrome to industry icon. And imposter syndrome is something that suddenly I didn't know what imposter syndrome was until about 2 years ago. And what happened was when George Floyd got murdered by the police, a lot came out about the black community, Black Lives Matters and all the stuff from that. And I've been in Dubai 30 years. And I was looking at it going, wow, that's a bit rough over there. And then I started looking at it and thinking, hold on, Dave, reverse engineer, why are you in Dubai? Because there's very little racism in Dubai at all. There's systematic things that go on, but if you're of any color and you can do business with any color and any nationality here, because it's all based on what can we do to help each other. And it's an amazing experiment that's working really well. And I looked at the bits and bobs that went into it, and I thought, well, how does that stuff that's happening in Europe and happening in America and all that stuff, how does that reflect on me? And I realized that I was actually carrying imposter syndrome, and I had done my entire life. Now, to explain imposter syndrome, it's that voice in your head that says you're not as good as everybody else. And so it doesn't matter what you do, you're always going to fail, you're always going to look stupid. Now, as a therapist and a hypnotherapist and life coach and business coach, I know that my entire life I've been saying no, 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 no. But there's still a bit in it that makes it really hard for you to believe that you can be at the top levels. That little bit where you would want to contact, a Hollywood star and start a relationship conversation going, you wouldn't do it because they're going to tell me no. Well, how do you know that? You don't know that. They might be really bored, especially now, because they've been through 2 years of no work. So it's a great time to do it. And I realized after the challenge of being a speaker, because I was an international speaker, hosting big events and training people all around the world, to zero. Nice income to zero, with a family and dogs and house and rent and cars and stuff to look after in Dubai. And so I had to reinvent. And part of that whole thing is looking at who I am, what I do, and how do I move forward. So part of the imposter syndrome challenge is working out if you're stuck in a situation where you've got to step up to the next level, what's holding you back? And I thought, actually, imposter syndrome. That is a major challenge for me. I can live with everything. I can deal with everything. But there's a part of me that I kind of hid from me. And I realized that bit is stopping me from stepping up to where I need to be for the outside world, for the world we're in now, where it really is get back into doing stuff. One of the things about imposter syndrome, something about the business world as well, is if you're in any other work, apart from, say, maybe entertainment, events, they got hit probably worse than anybody. Everyone's jobs have carried on. Everyone's work's carried on, working from home, maybe, all the rest of it. If you've been in entertainment, which is one of the glam jobs or events, it went to zero. So it's really hard to explain to people outside what events people have gone through.
What were the steps that you've taken, and how are they reflected in the book, probably? How did you overcome the situation where you had to pivot, where you had to overcome your imposter syndrome, as you mentioned? So I've got a very, very interesting quote from Meryl Streep, who said, imposter syndrome is like, you think, why would they want to see me in another movie? I don't know how to act anyway. And that's Meryl Streep, right? So everybody's going through that. Well,
Meryl Streep
what are your secrets? What are the steps that you take?
Actors have it worse than most, because the fact is you have to act as somebody else, and you've got to have incredible vulnerability as you do that anyway, which makes a massive challenge. So there are steps that I came to realize to get over imposter syndrome, and it's been a really fascinating journey to experience it. And one of the ways I'll explain about it, apart from just being able to map out your life and being able to step it out so you know exactly what you're doing as you're doing it, and you reduce the risk and you use it as business models. So for instance, let's take the idea that people, have you ever seen The Secret or read The Secret, all about the idea of the law of attraction, all that other stuff, and you got vision boards, all that stuff. Fascinating, really good. But what works better than vision boards, what works better than writing down your goals, which is very effective, is working out business models and reverse engineering how you get there. Mm-hmm. Because then you've got a system to follow, not just going, hopefully the wind's blowing this way, I might get to be famous or rich or whatever it is that you're after. And so with the system that I put together for it, and it may already exist in the system, but I've not come across it, I believe that you've got 3 stages to your life. First one is you're born with your birth certificate name. So in my case, it's David Maxwell Crane, little baby David Maxwell Crane, born years ago, 50 plus years ago. And so you create out of David Maxwell Crane, or your birth certificate name, the person that you are today. Everybody goes through that. So the person that you are today, so that's your stage 1 is birth certificate name. Then you've got your social media name, which is stage 2. So my stage name, my social media name is Dave Crane. That's who I've created out of David Maxwell Crane. And that's the person that everybody knows. And that's the person that I will do stuff on stage. And I've got a family, and I've got good bits and bad bits. The fully rounded person. The challenge is that that's not optimized. It's really hard to be that all the time. It's really hard to be the best version of that all the time, because you're a real person. And so you're better than the birth certificate, because I can't even say it, birth certificate version of you, but you are still a construct of the good, the bad, and the ugly of how many years it's taken to get there. But then there's a third stage, And the third stage is what makes it so fascinating. If you look at your history and you look at the time that you get into the zone and you look at the times that you optimize yourself and be really good at what you do. So for instance, if you're a lawyer, you might be okay at doing the law bit, but you get me in front of a jury and I'm going to make sure it's brilliant. That's a brilliant version of you. Mm-hmm. If you're a sports person like a Ronaldo's a great all-round footballer, but what he does better than anybody is work out how the ball gets in the back of the net and he gets to that space and knocks it in past everybody, even though the whole team is trying to knock him off the ball. We all have a zone that we do really well, where it's creative writing, and so you find yourself at 5 o'clock in the morning and you go, I've finished. What's 5 o'clock? Oh my goodness. But that's brilliant. That's perfect, sending it off. That zone version of us, I gave it the name of, imagine what your nickname was at school. That person of you when you step up, and it only steps up when you need it to, but most of the time you might even not know it exists. I called mine Max. My particular one is when I've got a microphone, I'm in front of people like a live audience, I can make every decision I need to make. I'm really good at what I do. I don't take no for an answer. I will go past any challenges to get the end result, which is that everybody walks away saying, what a great event. So after 2 years of on and off work and chasing stuff all around the world, I was left in a situation where I realized, like many other people, that the second pandemic is not the disease. It's actually the depression, the anxiety, the challenges, the feeling that the world's not the same as it's going to be. You lose family, friends, all sorts during that. I lost my dad about 3 months ago, so I know exactly what the whole process is. And I just thought, I'm not strong enough as Dave Crane to be able to step up and do this. Mm-hmm. But Max is. Mm-hmm. So what I did to test it was I thought, right, okay, if this is a theory that's going to work, I'm going to start asking Max questions. When I've got a difficult situation, like how do I deal with that client? How do I deal with this? I know if I had a microphone and I was on the spot, I'd come up to the right decision. So why don't I just ask Max what he should do? So I'd ask myself, it sounds bonkers, but I asked myself, what should he do in that situation? And my subconscious mind said to me, do this. And the deal was, I didn't want to crush it down and ignore it. I wanted to do exactly what it said and see if it worked. So then I started doing what Max said. I started doing these things. And then I thought, you know what? It's really comfortable at doing this. Why don't I just be Max? So to the outside world, I'm still Dave Crane, which I am. But the inside mechanism is Max. So I drive everything like that. And what I found was that optimized version of me beats imposter syndrome because I don't put up with any rubbish. I make very smart, good decisions about stuff. I put stuff into perspective in a split second, and I'm completely happy in my own skin.
No, yeah, it's from the point of view of developing the right mechanism to fight the imposter syndrome. I think that's an absolutely great way to sort of get to move forward, to take another action, because that's what the unstoppable mindset, I understand, is. So take another action and then another action, and then you kind of you keep on building things. So that's great. That's great. I mean, as I said, I'm looking forward for the book to come out because I think, for the record, there will be a lot of personal examples from Dave's life, which we were not talking today, but I mean, he's got a pretty remarkable life.
I can give you an example. I realized that when I reverse engineered everything that I've done, imposter syndrome was at the heart of it, but there's certain life decisions I made all the way through that got me the results that I wanted. So now I embrace them. So for instance, probably the most famous person I've ever worked with was James Brown. I hosted his event in Dubai. At the time of him coming to Dubai, he was the biggest star we've ever had. And I got to interview him. So if I look at my life back to the birth certificate me and all the experiences I had working up towards the actual interview with James Brown and going on stage with him, you can actually work out when the elements were being put in place that meant that when I needed to shine, I could do it. Okay. And I could look at it and say, that's it. So for instance, we had a situation recently where I hosted the World Cup cricket. Mm-hmm. T20 World Cup cricket, one of the biggest events of the year, apart from the Olympics, which is a bit... So I did the World Cup cricket. I don't know anything about cricket. I do now, but I didn't at the time. But I do know how to work an audience. I do know how to learn how to work a new sport. I do know how to get all the elements and do them live in front of an audience without blinking and making it work. So I had a really strong learning curve to be able to be as good as I am at hosting live cricket to the world. At the same time, my dad passed in the middle of me doing these sessions. I did my first session and it was challenging really hard, lost my dad, and then I had another session lined up in 2 days. So what do? Do you just cancel? Well, no. After 2 years of no work, of no live gigs, you want to make your stand and say, here I am, I'm working, I'm great, I'm doing it. So you find a way of working at it. I handed over to Max. Max did the gigs. I was able to do the daytime, looking after my mom, doing all the paperwork, chasing people, telling people, letting them know, all the rest. Didn't have time to grieve, but Max took care of all those. So everything from the opening of Planet Hollywood to I mean, I hosted the Dubai Rugby Sevens for 20 years. Going out in front of 45,000 people for 3 days every year with a microphone, doing games, singing, everything for 20 years. To do it that long, if you reverse engineer it to the beginning of who you are, again, there's a certain package, a certain part of you that you put together that tells you you can do this. And I remember the very first time I took over running the event. And I was in my Jeep. I had a red Jeep at the time. I was single. Hey, I can't remember those days. But I was driving in my Jeep and I was thinking, you can't do this. You can't do this gig. Because I was brought in by a friend of mine, a really good friend of mine, who then they fell out with and they said, right, we're going to get rid of him. We've had an argument. We want you to run the event, Dave. And I said, well, that's not fair because he brought me in. And they said, well, it's dead simple. You have to do it, so we get somebody else in. And I thought, well, if I take it, then all the people who are in our group still have a job. So that's why I'm going to take it. But I'm driving the car thinking, what am I going to do? And I took a step back and I thought, hold on. You're a life coach. Ask yourself a life coachy question. Ask better questions. I thought, okay, if you are the organizer and you are running this event and you're the founder and you're the sponsor and everything, you've got to hire somebody to do that job. Why would you hire somebody? Say, right, they've got to know the event. They've got to be great with audiences. They've got to be great to think on the spur of the moment. They know all the different elements that go into making Rugby Sevens happen. They've got a team that trusts them and they're very good at entertainment. Who would you choose? I'd choose Dave Crane. Oh, they have? Chosen Dave. That's it. That means that if I'm doing that job, because they saw the same thing that I've just seen now, so if I get it wrong or get it right, I'm the best person to get it wrong or right. So with that, I threw myself into it. I trusted myself. Some things we did brilliantly, some things we did better the year after, but we never dropped the ball, and it lasted for 20 years. And during those 20 years, I had most of the same team with me all the way through. And I don't think anybody's got an experience like that. 20 years in Dubai in the events industry, doing an event that was the biggest flagship. I didn't realize it, but 18 years on the trot, we won the best event of the region, best sporting event of the region. I had so many certificates, I threw them in a bin. I didn't even think about it. Every year I get a certificate like, yeah, whatever. But it's only later on you go, oh, I should put that on my LinkedIn. And so examples like that, of which there are many, and they're all in the book, I reverse engineer the mindset of everything I've gone through so people can do that for themselves. They can look at the challenges that they've got, the things they've got to go through. And everyone's got real challenges and say, right, what would Dave say? Or in their case, what would their nickname version of them say? And then they can make themselves step up to a much higher level, get much better success and become unstoppable.